Hello people, welcome to another video when I want to talk about Steel Division and a little bit compare it to previous eugen titles, especially Wargame series, and have a little bit rant here. Told you why I think it's best uh, strategy game ever. You know, which is very my personal opinion because to be honest, even if I really don't like Red Dragon, if I look at it very objectively, Red Dragon is probably better game, but it's just not for me, and I think that Steel Division really has something which no other RTS have, and today I want to talk about it, about Steel Division biggest strengths and also weaknesses. So now let's start with strengths. Firstly, I think uh, most important thing what Steel Vision does, which almost every other RTS game which is not some hardcore, how do you say that, simulation like Man of War, you know, I don't talk about those kind of games, but I more talk about war game or Company of Heroes. Game which are not simulation but are very strategic, not classical RTS games, and that is unit interactions, and that this game really strike that kind of balance between unique acting realistically as they would, and it making sense for the player. This is definitely not a super realistic game, but it is realistic enough that uh, you can actually use real world tactics and not uh, game logic, which is for me very important. So and this is something which, even if I really wanted to like Red Dragon, just didn't do, do it, didn't do it right. In Red Dragon, for example, I would say the biggest problem in Red Dragon was infantry. It just didn't act as infantry would. You could not use it as you would infantry. It was basically this short range unit which you could only use in the town and forests, and it was uh, very fast but still slow compared to everything, compared to how you needed to play the game. And biggest problem was that it really could not move freely. Like if your infantry got ambushed in the tank from a distance, it basically died in 2 or 3 shots. Well, more of 3. There are some units in this game which allows you to kill infantry in almost one shot, but those are specialized units which make sense that they can do that. What really doesn't make sense is when you have tank and it can shoot from 2 kilometers away and basically murder uh, half of the squad. That's a thing which really pissed me off in Red Dragon, and it didn't make sense because yeah, tank cannons can be really deadly, but shooting at somebody who is 2 kilometers away is doesn't exactly is most effective weapon on that range, especially from infantry squad. I would really expect that. To be honest, I'm not expert on this stuff. I just play a lot of video games. But I would expect that at that range you would be lucky to kill one or two guys with cannon, because they are not designated anti-infantry weapon even if they load it by high explosive munition. And in my opinion, it does have quite unfortunate effect on the gameplay in Red Dragon, and that people were too afraid to use its infantry aggressively, especially for flanks, and it the result that basically in the game you it doesn't look like Cold War. It look like World War I, which is quite ironic because this is a game from Second World War, but Frontline is already more interesting and more diverse than anything what I saw in Red Dragon. Maybe not exactly in this match, but I would really say that in Red Dragon, even best players play in the way that they just uh, form a front line and they push each other in and out. There wasn't really room for some clever maneuvers, flanks, or even surrounded your enemies. It was almost impossible to do, but here now you can see that flanks are quite effective when you get it on your enemy. He cannot just react that well, and like in first match I played in this game, very first match against real player, I managed to surround entire city, and it was really great moment for me. And I never do anything like that in a Red Dragon, and that was why that game really disappointed me. And biggest reason why I think it was like that was because players were too afraid to push their units uh, like from to the field or to the forest, because it was just so easy to get one-shotted by some helicopter or bomber. And this is exactly work for infantry, because it's in most situations so hard to kill. It's easy to conceal, it's easy to take cover. That is very important job which infantry has at warfare, but because it got killed so quickly, because it could not really hide that well, it could not take cover as effectively, especially on max range when units should be spread out. It make game suffer quite a bit, because it really looked more like trench warfare from 1920, or I don't even know when first world first world war take place. But I just find that a very stable front line being very boring, and even this game which introduced this frontline mechanic, which basically make a game more kind of static. I would say it's still more dynamic than uh, board game Red Dragon or even previous war games. Actually, not as European Escalation, but European Escalation has its own problems. Maybe we can talk about it another day. So this kind of changes for infantry. now working more as men with weapons and not as some sort of strange vehicle, improve game in my eyes very much, because just play totally differently, and it also improve how you use tanks and vehicles in general, because now when vehicles are not able to one-shot it infantry squad from 2 kilometers, their effectiveness at longer range against infantry and infantry weapon is more limited. But it also makes their machine guns much more important, and this is a change which I really like, because in Red Dragon machine guns were basically almost useless, and it especially make the lot of armored units, a lot of tanks, uh, just much same, because it doesn't matter if it has this kind of machine gun or that kind of a machine gun, it was basically the same. And now it's a little bit better, like you have a lot of vehicles with 2 machine guns, and you use them definitely differently than something with just one. And because there are no modern rocket launchers, infantry cannot kill tanks at that big range as before, and I would say that's a good thing, because tanks are right now most effective at medium range, which should be historically accurate, because at longest range they are just too far away to see anything, and at shorter range they can be destroyed by grenades or subtle charges. So I would say that's exactly thing how it should be, and it, in my opinion, help game greatly. Another thing which I think need to stop saying word think. I don't think about this. Another big improvement, in my opinion, was improvement to artillery. Now artillery feel a little bit more less as something which just one-shotted stuff in entire map, more as kind of tactical thing to use to suppress your enemies, which make made this game much less reactionary and more strategic based. And you just don't happen that often that you get frustrated with artillery which just one shot some important unit, because units right now can take cover much more effectively, but they're affected by artillery fire more as real units would be. So that is another big improvement in my opinion. And this so now I was talking kind of in general about unit interaction, why I think they are better in this game, and why it makes games so much fun for me. But most importantly, in general, these changes were good in my opinion, because it make game less about uh, fast reflexes and kind of traditional RTS knowledge, and more about actual strategy and creativity. You can actually see these very cool maneuvers, flanks, and really fast surprise attacks, which didn't really happen that often in previous titles. They kind of happened in European escalation, but I would say they were very risky because in European escalation you don't have any way to use recon effectively, you know. But also all the units were i- so disposable that you didn't really have to worry about it. But that was, in my opinion, problem on its own. I personally I like games where you have to preserve units. So another point which I want to talk about is stealth. Personally, I think it's probably one of the greatest additions to this game. That right now is much more easier to sneak up on your units on the enemy, to get your recon behind enemy front line or right on top of it, and just get the information which you need. Even if um, there are certain problems with front line, um, because it kind of function as radar, but still recon units don't affect it, so you have a lot of opportunities to kind of infiltrate your units and scout ahead, which was very problematic in previous uh, Ver game games. And I even read somewhere that in Red Dragon, Recon was a king. In Steel Division, it is God, and I definitely agree to that. And no, that's just way it probably should be, because it give play more control over how they play. So in general, I would say recon units are now much more stealthier than in previous titles. I can have it here and I don't have to be afraid something will gonna spot it, because even this kind of unit, which is also recon, is too far away, and you just have much better idea what your recon units can do and how to preserve them. And also maps are more layered, and there are these small bushes here which you can use to sneak up on your enemies, and you could not do that in previous titles. You could send your recon units to the forest and it could just get spotted by helicopter flying over and get one-shotted, and that was just really frustrating. You could rarely see players to actually use some sort of infiltration behind enemy lines. You also don't see it that much in this game, but I'm not exactly used to playing 2v2s, so I kinda forget about using my recon effectively. If I did, I would probably try to sneak up it from here or on this side, but this is kinda clear what he's doing. But if I manage to get recon somewhere here now, I could see that there is nothing really here, and I could say, yeah, I gonna push here, try to hold this open area with some planters, and take a lot of ground. Or even if I get my recon here, could it could help me a really lot. But this kind of map um, just have so many obstacles that it's kind of impossible to use your recon effectively. So it also depends a lot on other map. But in general, in my opinion, it's really improved over Red Dragon. Another unit interaction, which I would say it's improve greatly is air combat, and again it lost a lot of its reactionary nature. It's not just about spamming it into middle of the map, clashing with your enemy. It's much more about micromanagement, about choosing your stuff carefully. And in Red Dragon, you have basically this kind of situation. You send in your air units to bomb something in the middle, and you send interceptors, and they were basically shooting on it on themselves, air-to-air rockets, until one of them died, or until some AA on the ground killed something. And there was really not much strategy in it. It was just about reflexes and knowledge of the game, uh, knowledge of all the stats, and that's just not why I play games. I admitting that Red Dragon was definitely a game where combat had much more punch to it. It was much more action based, but I just am not in Eugen games for that. And in a Steel Division, you actually need to micromanage your units to get them behind enemy airplanes, to choose paths, uh, how they where they're gonna fly, to avoid enemy AA, to kinda drag enemy aircraft over your AA. And AA is reasonably strong. It can repel enemy units, but uh, it, in most matches, this kind of area is not no-go zone. Like I can kind of engage enemies here a little bit, or even somewhere here, and it's not gonna get shot down immediately. There is just much more strategy in using these units. And so, last point which I want to make about why I think a Steel Division is superior to Wargame is, I was basically talk about it for all this time, but this is well, all of these changes basically end up making strategy in the game and practice in the game much more important. Uh, it's basically much more about how do you use your army as whole, how do you use your units, and less about knowledge of all the stats and reflexes. Because in my opinion, uh, Red Dragon just became a little bit too reactionary. You know, it wasn't as bad as something as StarCraft better. All the people who play StarCraft, I don't, but all the people who played it will tell you that always wins a guy who has faster reflexes, because it's all about reflexes. If you can control your army faster than he, there is basically nothing which your opponent can do about it. And some people like that. I personally, uh, when I play strategy game, I will kind of sit back, relax, and really outsmart my opponent. Think about some creative way to just destroy him. It's not about it's not about reflexes for me, because if I want to play a game about reflexes, I would just play some shooter. And with the RTS games when like real strategy, like where do you push, where do you defend, in which way you defend, and overall how do you use your units. Where this kind of stuff is important are quite rare. You know, if you don't count some simulators, you know, like Men of War, you know, which is are not exactly acceptable games for most of people. Like it's really hard to get into it, and you know, personally, I am not as big of the fan. You know, I was always waited for the game which would be accessible, but also like deep in strategy department, and you know, this is it. You know, I cannot doubt that there will be anything better at this job. So, but in general, why I think this game has so good strategy is basically, you know, you don't have to be as good as micromanaging all units. You can actually have almost, you can actually lose more units as your enemy. Even you can have twice as big losses as him. But if you manage to pull out good strategy in the end, you can win. And you know, that was quite rare in Red Dragon. It happened in European escalation quite a lot. You know, that was also very strategic game. I would even say maybe more than this, but it just have. I dislike it for other issues. But in Steel Division, you can flank, you can surround your enemies, and no, that's what I always wanted from this kind of game. But you know, let's go from the for the bad parts now. You know, why this game is not successful, why I am a minority which praises this game so much. You know, simply put, I agree that eugen system downgraded almost everything about this game compared to wargame series. You know, it's just kind of different type of game. It just don't have a lot of so let's just now look at kind of what where I think the Steel Division failed. Why it's not as successful as Red Dragon. You know, in general, I think it's not that Steel Division is some sort of big downgrade over wargame series, but I feel like wargame series started like this. You know, uh, it has kind of similar problems. It has this kind of amount of content, and again, system try to do something new, and you know that quality, that content of Red Dragon just didn't carry over into this franchise yet. You know, who knows what will be in the future. But right now, Red Dragon has just significantly more content than a Steel Division, which is not saying that Steel Division has a small amount of content that it's full game. It's definitely not compared to other strategy games. You get like 10 maps in 4 variations. You get 12 missions, 16 divisions, which and even a free DLC, even if it wasn't as rich as Red Dragons ones. It still introduced a lot. Some small stuff like new units, new aces, but also very big stuff like new mode, which is now kind of default setting for in all of the games. Uh, Another mode, uh, breakthrough mode, which is very different from anything in the game, and uh, anything which was in the Eugen game before. No, well, actually, in European Escalation there was something a little bit similar, but it was still no, it was basically whole new modes, and not just with some small changes. Like this totally changed how game was played, and I really enjoyed it. Despite you could just play on 4 maps and with six, well, 8 or 12 divisions. So Steel Division is definitely not poor game. No, but if you go against Red Dragon with its 1,000 units, I'm not surprised that some players were disappointed. But and a lot of it that hate was aimed at Paradox systems, because they have kind of reputation on having kind of not enough stuff in their games, and just putting a lot of stuff on the DLC, which if you were kind of spoiled by Eugen system, you know I see your point, but I also don't think that's something which would be big problem for Steel Division, because you still got a lot of good content for the price, and DLCs are quite reasonable. So I wouldn't say that content is the big of the problem for the game. It's definitely not improvement, but when I feel it mostly affected Steel Division is in deck building. You know, Steel Division tried to be more realistic game, more historically accurate, and personally I don't think it was best move, especially it restricted the whole game on Normandy front, which I think is quite a small scale for a game like this. In European escalation, you have basically whole Central Europe. Actually, that is not a good example. European escalation has also problem with choice of its theater. Red Dragon is a really good example. You were basically fight in whole Asia. You have so many different maps, so many different nations, and you can build so much different decks. And a lot of players even spend more time with that deck building than in the game. And it's possible in this game, but this kind of really deep deck building, it just not as good the system as it Red Dragon. It's not that diverse, and it just don't give so much space for creativity. Um, yeah, no, it can be interesting for history buffs to play with historically accurate divisions, and it definitely put much more strategy into making your decks. You need to make much lot of harder choices, which is not bad thing, but I would still prefer if we have more variation in deck building. This kind of division system is just, but that's something which cannot really be changed. The whole game is named Steel Division. You know, so what they could do about it? You know, I would personally would suggest don't get rid of the division system completely, but uh, you know allow players to kind of combine units from other division by maybe uh, when you start building a new division, you can unlock, not like unlock, but you can activate some sort of reinforcement to the division. And so, for example, I with 12 SS Panzer division can get the reinforcements from the some infantry division and get some Osttroopen squads. And I would maybe needed to pay more for them, or uh, maybe it would take away some of my slots in deck building, but it would still play like 12 SS Panzer Division, but it would add kind of flair to it, and more variation would be possible. Also, if you feel like your division just don't have enough supplies, enough recon or something, or you can really change fundamentally how you play the division, and you don't care, it's gonna be a little bit bigger because you're gonna sacrifice something for it. It would be pretty interesting sting system, and you would still keep the division system, so you could play with historically accurate division, but now you could get reinforcements from the surrounding divisions, which it would technically keep it historically accurate, but you just have more variation. So and last thing which I think is kind of problematic in this game is frontline system. you know I praised unique interaction and stealth in this game. I think it's such a big step forward compared to Red Dragon, but you know it's still a game from World War II, and frontline system definitely fits that theme, but I don't. So you could say that it's go a little bit against what I just phrased, that there is much more maneuvers, and even with this kind of frontline system which function as basically kind of radar, I still think that this is more modern combat than anything in the Red Dragon. Yeah, you cannot snipe your units from a few kilometers away and send guided rockets on them. So it's more conventional, but uh, I would say you never feel like there is trench warfare going on in a Red Dragon, even if it's like modern conflict. You know, you just feel like you're fighting trench warfare. People just push against each other on some points of the map, and they are too afraid to do anything. And I think that this game a little bit uh, they have opportunity to really make interesting frontline system, but fact that it function as radar. You know, in my opinion, it hurts game a little bit. Not even a little bit. I would say it hurts game significantly because it discourages kind of stealth surprise attacks. Not as much as in Red Dragon, but it's definitely discouraging and more harder to do this kind of maneuvers because of this, and it's quite unrealistic. What I would suggest to fixing this issue would be just make frontline to react differently. That if this unit push here, enemy will see to push frontline, but you won't because you don't know if somebody is pushing or not. This could be kinda hard to program, but I think it would be worth to try, or just make units, just give them some sort of switch here or somewhere which you just pressed, and they stop affecting frontline, so they can be stealthy. And when you engage enemy or decides to s- uh, s- s- stop sneaking up, start fighting, you can just switch it up, or engage enemy, and your units it would take them while, but they would start again creating the front line around them, and they would basically work the same, but you have the opportunity to do much more sneaking, so that would also be good fix. Last thing which I kinda want to mention, uh, which I feel like Steel Division just didn't get it right, is art and music. It just not as compelling as previous Eugen system games. Um, Music just doesn't have any character to it in this game. I usually just open browser windows in this game and start something some music which I like, with kind of this military character to it. Also, art, I just feel like just main menu is very boring compared to all the board games, and you know just it just look everything in this game just look so generic. No, I'm not trying to say that this game is ugly or anything. Maps are pretty, the units are pretty, the icons are very informative, but these things are kind of best design, visual design things in the game. The rest of it, like, it's just kind of boring, but they're just kind of minor detail. Oh, then I want to point at two things which I don't think are really good or bad, but which I think have really potential here, but they kinda didn't really take it anywhere. And firstly, mods. Mods are a great addition, but this game just didn't give modders tools which they needed to create interesting mods. And a lot of mods are not even functional because the game is constantly updating, and mods are becoming um, not you can, I forget the word, you cannot just use them anymore. So the modding scene is almost dead at this point. there are still some great mods out there, but I rarely play them. Another thing which I want to talk about maps. You know, I biggest problem which I have with first war game were maps, and then Red Dragon came out, and it fixed it. Maps were really great, and um, but Steel Division has maps based on real locations, so that is kind of thing which I'm not exactly sure it was best idea, but I feel like uh, there could be a way around it, which you could have like accurate maps, but you know some of the map, having maps based on real life locations in one hand is very good because it assures that uh, no map really feel like it was created for purpose of the game, and it doesn't feel artificial. you know Everything feels real, and tactics feel real as well, but just not all of them are winners. There are certain maps which just really discourages some sort of play, and it just kind of uh, every time I start match on point the hook, I am like, oh my god, again this map, because you know there are basically hedge rows on entire map, and there is any nothing which could like you know make you think, oh, let's use different strategy here or here. It's just all the same. It's just like playing video game and whole map is one big forest. It's realistic, but it's not exactly fun. But most of them are quite good. But I just wish that with these based on real world maps, there were they drop half of them, and half were actually uh, designed by developers. That would be my wish, but they wouldn't need probably on that expand on theater, not just Normandy. So well, that's basically everything what was on my mind. I just wanted to make this video because I felt like uh, Steel Division got a lot of critique, which I wouldn't say didn't deserve, but there are certain qualities of this game which I guess just most of Eugen fan base didn't really care about, but I did wanted to make this video, uh, kind of thanking Eugen for making this game, because it's a really niche game, and you know I feel like they make it for same reason as they make Act of Aggression, which I didn't play it, but because it's kind of a classical RTS game, which I'm not really interested in. But like they probably know that not gonna be really commercial hit, but they went it with it anyway, because that's that was game which they really wanted to make, but sorry, it just didn't end up being very popular. And I feel like their own, I would say, their passion for the project died quite quickly. You know, they, uh, what I heard, drop it uh, quite very soon. But uh, you know, with Steel Division, they probably planning to do the same, but well, not planning, but I think we can expect it to end it up the same. And I was really hoping to not, and even if it didn't get as much success, we have entire year of free DLCs, even if not as big as Red Dragon, you know, still quite significant, and we get two paid DLCs, which, in my opinion, well, were alright. Like this game definitely get supported um, through this era, and I am really happy about it because there were, you know, what's the word? Never mind. I'm just glad that this game is out. I think I already have more hours in it than any other RTS game, and I'm not planning to stop. So that's everything for this video. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you keep playing Steel Division if it's for your liking. If not, I get it.